we are trying to do every week. We are bringing our NASCAR expert straight from pit row to give you guys the latest on the NASCAR race this week. NASCAR expert, first of all, hope you're having a great day. What's the latest in the world of NASCAR? Where are we in the NASCAR Cup Series? Just give us the latest kind of macro view across NASCAR right now.
So as we talked a little bit last week, we're just a little bit past halfway. We have 8 races to the cutoff now for teams to try to make the playoffs. And we're coming off the Chicago Street Race, which was the first street race in NASCAR history.
And a very successful race at that. That was getting some good pub for NASCAR, I felt.
It was, especially for the weekend. They had a record month of rainfall in 2 days. So NASCAR really had a lot of trouble trying to get this race going. They actually called the Xfinity race even before halfway, which NASCAR's rule is the race makes it halfway, and weather impacts it, they can call it, make it official. They actually had to abort on that and actually call it early, 2 laps short because of the weather. And also, to be honest with you, lap 46, our Fumble Sports picks, we were absolutely on fire, and I never count my chickens before they're hatched, but a few races back in Kansas, we gave you the winner, all 3 top 10s, and the head-to-head selection, and looked like we were about to do the same. And again, NASCAR unprecedented made a call on lap 46. A caution came out for Alex Bowman with a motor issue, and at that time, our official picks, we had our 2 winners and our 3 top 10s were all in the top 10, and then the 2 picks of drivers I told you to watch last week, and Christopher Bell and Michael Waddell were also in the top 10. So we had all 7 of our picks sitting in the top 10 at lap 46. When what happened is the back half of the field pitted, and NASCAR came out and said, okay, because of darkness, we're going to cut 25 laps short of this race. But what that did was everyone that didn't pit, the top 20 or so cars, now fuel strategy was blown up. Now they had to pit. So all the cars that got pitted got a huge benefit, cycled to the front of the field, and then chaos ensued, and all of our drivers were pretty much taken out along the way. So lap 46, we were looking golden, and by lap 50, we were in the toilet in that one. So,
and that's what we call a bad beat, everybody. When you make the right prediction and literally something goes askew, something goes wrong. I mean, you can't predict those kinds of things, and I certainly don't put that on our NASCAR expert, nor do I put that on Fumble Sports when we give out a pick and something goes kaflooey. Say it's a rain delay, the starting pitcher gets pulled, now it's a bullpen game, there's an injury, something crazy happens. But the fact that our NASCAR expert is giving such good information to the point where without these, external variable factors that are outside of our control, he's calling the races correctly. That's why we have him on. That's why we have him contributing content every single week. So those who are watching the show, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, or Kick, you may not be a big NASCAR fan, or you may not bet on NASCAR. I want to open your eyes to it a little bit, because not only are you getting good information from our NASCAR expert, but a lot of the betting that you can do is at plus odds, plus money, which makes it really favorable if, to use some racing language, if you have the inside turn on that advantage and on that information, that's how you can cash some tickets, put some money in your pocket, even if you don't know that much about racing. So, with that said, let's dive into the race this week at Atlanta. Tell us about the Atlanta Motor Speedway. What do we really know about the track? What really stands out in terms of the qualities of the racetrack?
So Atlanta Motor Speedway, spring of last year, went under a repave. Atlanta is a 1.5-mile trial, but that used to be super high tire wear, super huge fall off in lap times. It became a driver's track. You really had to baby the tires to make it through a full fuel run. Well, they repaved it. And since they repaved it, you'll hear the term super speedway racing, you'll hear the term pack racing, you'll hear the term restrictor plate racing, and that really applies to Daytona and Talladega. But this has become a mini super speedway race. Because of the repave, they narrowed up the corners, and it's so fast now with no tire wear that with the short aero package that they run, NASCAR runs here, this has turned into a pack race. So what you know about Atlanta from every year leading up to last year, you can throw it away because it's completely different. So you're going to have drivers nose to tail all the way through the field from first to 36, all on top of each other, working their way through a pack, much like you would see at Daytona and Talladega.
Who are the drivers who thrive in pack racing?
So it's an art form, and some drivers are really good at it, and some are absolutely terrible at it. And when we talk about pack racing, this is your opportunity to maybe get a lot of value. So there's a lot of surprise winners. Over the years, Daytona, Talladega, a lot of surprise winners. Trevor Bayne won Daytona 500 at long odds. I mean, look at this year. Stenhouse Jr. was plus 4,000 to win Daytona 500 this year. But Stenhouse Jr. is kind of a sneaky good plate racer, and he gets to win. So this is where you can kind of go through the field and take a look at some guys and get some really good value because, the guys like Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin, these guys are really, really experienced and very highly touted super speedway racers. But there's guys in the back of the pack that, like maybe a Justin Haley, you don't hear from very often. But when plate racing comes around, he somehow seems to be inside the top 10 towards the end of the race. So this is a really interesting race. Between Chicago Street Race and now heading to this new mini super speedway racing in Atlanta, these are kind of two really anomalies where it's a big question mark on both of them. We'll get back to our regular, scheduled programming next week in New Hampshire, but this is another one of those Atlanta races that could produce a surprise winner.
Joe Warren, one of our viewers here on TikTok Live, is asking, do we have DFS picks for the race at Atlanta? We will be giving out picks in our website on our blog that we put out on our website. We'll put that out probably later this evening. So, Joe, you can check out those picks and put your DFS lineup together for the race accordingly. With that said, give us a little bit of a teaser on that article, NASCAR Expert. Who are some of the drivers that we should consider, at least for the top 10?
So a couple of drivers you can consider for the top 10. First one I would take a look at would be Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney is a pretty good super speedway racer and has been winless for a while until he finally won the Coke 600 a few weeks ago. So the pressure's off. He's in the playoffs. He's good to go. And the last two races at Atlanta, he's had a 5th and 7th place finish. So Ryan Blaney's a good one to look at, and he's part of the Ford camp. So you might hear, if you watch a little bit over the course of this year, Ford has been at a serious disadvantage this season. And what they did was they made a modification to the front nose of the car to change the arrow, which they thought was going in the right direction. But actually what happened was 180 of what they thought. They became really good at super speedways, but Ford has been really, really behind at the 2-mile and less racetracks, arrow-wise. So Ford's starting to come back around, but when it gets to super speedway type racing, you can throw out the window and the Fords really have an advantage. Ryan Blaney's in that Ford camp. So he's the one to take a look at. Another one to take a look at that could be a good value is Daniel Suarez. And 2 of the last 3 Atlanta races, he's finished 4th and 6th. He's been running better as of late. And his teammate Ross Chastain has got punched his ticket a couple weeks ago to the playoffs. So the pressure's on him to run well. And he could be a guy that could find his way to the front. And I mentioned Justin Haley. Justin Haley is a guy that this is probably the only chance he'll have to win all year is the Daytona, Talladega, and those Atlanta super speedway races because he's just not going to find his way to the front anywhere else. And in 2 of the last 3 races, he has finishes of 7th and 11th. So he might actually be a good, top 10 player as well to find good value. But the Ford camp, is someone to take a look at, as far as this goes. But also to that point, on the Ford camp, there's probably 2 or 3 drivers you should stay away from this weekend. And that's the Stewart House Racing team. Between Ryan Preece and Chase Briscoe, they have really been struggling. Other than Kevin Harvick with that team, Briscoe only has 18 races this year. He only has 3 top 5s and 4 top 10s, and a finish of 24th in the spring Atlanta race. And Preece this year has really been struggling. 18 races this year, he has no top 5, no top 10s, and a best finish of 28th in the spring race. So some Ford camp you might want to fade this week.
Who are some drivers that we should just consider for back-of-the-pack plays and should avoid them altogether?
Yeah, those are 2 I mentioned, Briscoe and Preece. I would keep in the back. Even their teammate Almirola. I mentioned it last week. Harrison Burton's really having a struggle this year. Noah Gragson came from Junior Motorsports in the Xfinity Series last year with a very highly touted background. Expected a lot at Legacy Motorsports. His teammate Eric Jones has run well this year, but Noah Gragson hasn't. So, Noah Gragson might be another driver to kind of stay away from. He has had some success at Super Speedway Racing in the Xfinity Series, but so far at the Cup level, he's really had a struggle.
Last thing I want to ask about is, are there any head-to-head matchups that we should have our eye on from a betting perspective? And could you tease who you actually like in those? Because we won't ask for a winner necessarily in the race. We'll force people to go check out the blog that you're going to put up a little bit later today. But is there a head-to-head matchup that you really like for this race?
So there's a couple of head-to-head matchups that you can take a look at. And some of these head-to-head matchups that I like are some of guys that really need to punch their way to the playoffs. So Chase Elliott right now is a guy that we mentioned last week. He's missed 6 races. He really needs to get a win to get in the playoffs. So Chase Elliott, you have him paired. I've seen him against Denny Hamlin, who's been a good speedway racer, and I've seen him paired against Ryan Blaney. I think Chase Elliott, a guy you can take a look at. He won this race last year, won one of the races last year in Atlanta, so he knows how to get it done there. and he really has to win to get in the playoffs. So if you look at the head-to-head matchups, it's the guys that I think have the pressure on and need to win that will be more aggressive to get to the front in these races and try to avoid the crashes. So I think Chase Elliott could be a really good value in whatever head-to-head match you find him in.
Really appreciate you joining us every single week. We know you got to get back to pit row and changing tires and everything else, but we appreciate you stopping by, giving us your analysis on the race this week. And we will be dropping our NASCAR Experts blog with all of his picks and analysis on our website, buttfumblesports.com, later today. NASCAR Expert, thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
Yep, have a great day. And like I always say, support your local short tracks, and it's the best way to learn about racing. And, the more you learn, the better you are at the window.
And again, I just want to echo that. Racing is great at all levels. Go support those who are getting into it, and maybe not the NASCAR level, but the local tracks. Go support those. It's great entertainment, and it's a way to support people chasing their dream. So NASCAR Expert, thank you so much. We will talk to you later. And for all those that are watching the show, hope you enjoyed our interview with our NASCAR Expert. We try to bring in some experts almost every day or every couple of days to give you perspective beyond ours and beyond the data that we show. People who really know their stuff about the sports they're talking, to hopefully give you some insight, whether it's for betting or to just learn more about the sport and how to take advantage of it as a sports fan and watch it to get the most out of it. We have been giving